settled down in our new home, and I resolved to keep a diary. Tradesmen trouble us a bit, so does the scraper. The curate calls and pays me a great compliment. My dear wife Carrie and I have just been a week in our new house, the Laurels, Brickfield Terrace, Holloway, a nice 6-roomed residence, not counting basement, with a front breakfast parlor. We have a little front garden, and there is a flight of 10 steps up to the front door, which, by the by, we keep locked with the chain up. Cummings, Gowan, and our other intimate friends always come to the little side entrance, which saves the servant the trouble of going up to the front door, thereby taking her from her work. We have a nice little back garden which runs down to the railway. We were rather afraid of the noise of the trains at first, but the landlord said we should not notice them after a bit and took £2 off the rent. He was certainly right, and beyond the cracking of the garden wall at the bottom, we have suffered no inconvenience. After my walk in the city, I like to be at home. What's the good of a home if you're never in it? Home, sweet home. That's my motto. I am always in of an evening. Our old friend Gowan may drop in without ceremony. So may Cummings, who lives opposite. My dear wife Caroline and I are pleased to see them, if they like to drop in on us. But Carrie and I can manage to pass our evenings together without friends. There is always something to be done. A tin tack here, a Venetian blind to put straight, a fan to nail up, or a part of a carpet to nail down, all of which I can do with my pipe in my mouth, while Carrie is not above putting a button on a shirt, mending a pillowcase, or practicing the silver gavotte on our new cottage piano on the 3 year system, manufactured by W. Buxton in small letters, from Collard and Collard in very large letters. It is also a great comfort to us to know that our boy Willie is getting on so well in the Bank of Oldham. We should like to see more of him. Now, for my diary. April 3rd or April 3. Tradesmen called for custom, and I promised Farmer's son, the ironmonger, to give him a turn if I wanted any nails or tools. By the by, that reminds me there is no key to our bedroom door, and the bells must be seen to. The parlor bell is broken, and the front door rings up in the servant's bedroom, which is ridiculous. Dear friend Gowan dropped in, but wouldn't stay, saying there was an infernal smell of paint. April 4. Tradesmen still calling. Carrie being out, I arranged to deal with Howen, who seemed a civil butcher with a nice clean shop. Ordered a shoulder of a mutton for tomorrow to give him a trial. Carrie arranged with Bossett, the butterman, and ordered a pound of fresh butter and a pound and a half of salt ditto for kitchen, and a shilling's worth of eggs. In the evening, Cummings unexpectedly dropped in to show me a meerschaum he had won in a raffle in the city and told me to handle it carefully as it would spoil the coloring if the hand was moist. He said he wouldn't stay as he didn't care much for the smell of the paint and fell over the scraper as he went out. Must get the scraper removed, or else I shall get into a scrape. I don't often make jokes. April 5. Two shoulders of mutton arrived. Kerry, having arranged with another butcher without consulting me. Gowan called and fell over scraper coming in. Must get that scraper removed. April 6. Eggs for breakfast, simply shocking. Sent them back to Borset with my compliments, and he needn't call any more for orders. Couldn't find umbrella, and though it was pouring with rain, had to go without it. Sarah said Mr. Gowan must have took it by mistake last night, as there was a stick in the oar that didn't belong to nobody. In the evening, hearing someone talking in a loud voice to the servant in the downstairs hall, I went out to see who it was and was surprised to find it was Borset, the waterman, who was both drunk and offensive. Borset, on seeing me, said he would be hanged if he would ever serve city clerks anymore. The game wasn't worth the candle. I restrained my feelings and quietly remarked that I thought it was possible for a city clerk to be a gentleman. He replied he was very glad to hear it and wanted to know whether I had ever come across one, for he hadn't. He left the house, slamming the door after him, which nearly broke the fanlight, and I heard him fall over the scraper, which made me feel glad I hadn't removed it. When he had gone, I thought of a splendid answer I ought to have given him. However, I will keep it for another occasion. April 7. Being Saturday, I looked forward to being home early and putting a few things straight. But two of our principals at the office were absent through illness, and I did not get home till 7. Found Bosset waiting. He had been 3 times during the day to apologize for his conduct last night. He said he was unable to take his bank holiday last Monday and took it last night instead. He begged me to accept his apology and a pound of fresh butter. He seems, after all, a decent sort of fellow, so I gave him an order for some fresh eggs, with a request that on this occasion they should be fresh. I am afraid we shall have to get some new stair carpets after all. Our old ones are not quite wide enough to meet the point on either side. Gary suggests that we might ourselves broaden the paint. I will see if we can match the color, dark chocolate, on Monday. April 8th, Sunday. After church, the curate came back with us. I sent Kerry in to open front door, which we do not use except on special occasions. She could not get it open, and after all my display, I had to take the curate, whose name, by the by, I did not catch, round the side entrance. He caught his foot in the scraper and tore the bottom of his trousers. Most annoying, as Scary could not well offer to repair them on a Sunday. After dinner, went to sleep, took a walk round the garden, and discovered a beautiful spot for sowing mustard and cress and radishes. Went to church again in the evening, walked back with the curate, carried Carey, noticed he had got on the same pair of trousers, only repaired. He wants me to take round the plate, which I think a great compliment. Chapter 2. Tradesmen and the scraper still troublesome. Gawain rather tiresome with his complaints of the paint. I make one of the best jokes of my life, the lights of gardening. Mr. Stewbrook, Gawain, Cummins, and I have a little misunderstanding. Sarah makes me look a fool before Cummins. April 9. Commenced the morning badly. The butcher, whom we decided not to arrange with, called and blackguarded me in the most uncalled for manner. He began by abusing me and saying he did not want my custom. I simply said, "Then what are you making all this fuss about it for?" And he shouted out at the top of his voice, so that all the neighbors could hear, "Pa, go along, or I could buy up things like you by the dozen." I shut the door and was giving Carrie to understand that this disgraceful scene was entirely her fault, when there was a violent kicking at the door, enough to break the panels. It was the blackguard butcher again, who said he had caught his foot over the scraper and would immediately bring an action against me. Called at Farmer's Son's, the ironmonger, on my way to town, and gave him the job of moving the scraper and repairing the bells, thinking it scarcely worthwhile to trouble the landlord with such a trifling matter. Arrived home tired and worried. Mr. Putley, a painter and decorator, who had sent in a card, said he could not match the color on the stairs, as it contained Indian carmine. He said he spent half a day calling at warehouses to see if he could get it. He suggested he could entirely repaint the stairs. It would cost very little more. If he tried to match it, he could only make a bad job of it. It would be more satisfactory to him and to us to have the work done properly. I consented, but I felt I had been talked over. Planted some mustard and cress and radishes and went to bed at 9. April 10. Farmerson came round to attend to the scraper himself. He seems a very civil fellow. He says he does not usually conduct such small jobs personally, but for me, he would do so. I thanked him and went to town. It is disgraceful how late some of the young clerks are at arriving. I told 3 of them that if Mr. Peckup, the principal, heard of it, they might be discharged. Pete, a monkey of 17, who had only been with us 6 weeks, told me to keep my hair on. I informed him I had had the honor of being in the firm 20 years, to which he insolently replied that I looked it. I gave him an indignant look and said, I demand from you some respect, sir. He replied, all right, go on demanding. I would not argue with him any further. You cannot argue with people like that. In the evening, Gowan called and repeated his complaint about the smell of paint. Gowan is sometimes very tedious with his remarks and not always cautious, and Carrie once very properly reminded him that she was present. April 11. Mustard and cress and radishes not come up yet. Today was a day of annoyances. I missed the 8:45 bus to the city through having words with the grocer's boy, who for the second time had the impertinence to bring his basket to the hall door and had left the marks of his dirty boots on the fresh, cleaned doorsteps. He said he had knocked at the side door with his knuckles for a quarter of an hour. I knew Sarah, our servant, could not hear this as she was upstairs doing the bedrooms, so asked the boy why he did not ring the bell. He replied that he did pull the bell, but the handle came off in his hand. I was half an hour late at the office, a thing that has never happened to me before. There has recently been much irregularity in the attendance of the clerks, and Mr. Peckup, our principal, unfortunately chose this very morning to pounce down upon us early. Someone had given the tip to the others. The result was that I was the only one late off the lot. Buckling, one of the senior clerks, was a brick, and I was saved by his intervention. As I passed by Pete's desk, I heard him remark to his neighbor, how disgracefully late some of the head clerks arrive. This was, of course, meant for me. I treated the observation with silence, simply giving him a look, which unfortunately had the effect of making both of the clerks laugh. Thought afterwards it would have been more dignified if I had pretended not to have heard him at all. Cummins called in the evening and we played dominoes. April 12. Mustard and cress and radishes not come up yet. Left Farmerson repairing the scraper, but when I came home, found 3 men working. I asked the meaning of it, and Farmerson said that in making a fresh hole, he had penetrated the gas pipe. He said it was a most ridiculous place to put the gas pipe, and the man who did it evidently knew nothing about his business. I felt his excuse was no consolation for the expense I shall be put to. In the evening after tea, Gowan dropped in and we had a smoke together in the breakfast parlor. Carrie joined us later, but did not stay long, saying the smoke was too much for her. It was also rather too much for me, for Gawain had given me what he called a green cigar, one that his friend Schumacher had just brought over from America. The cigar didn't look green, but I fancy I must have done so, for when I had smoked a little more than half, I was obliged to retire on the pretext of telling Sarah to bring in the glasses. I took a walk round the garden 3 or 4 times, feeling the need of fresh air. On returning, Gawain noticed I was not smoking, offered me another cigar, which I politely declined. Gawain began his usual sniffing, so, anticipating him, I said, "You are not going to complain of the smell of paint again." He said, "No, not this time. But I will tell you what, I distinctly smell dry rot. I don't often make jokes, but I replied, "You are talking a lot of dry rot yourself." I could not help roaring at these, and Carrie said her sides quite ached with laughter. I never was so immensely tickled by anything I have ever said before. I actually woke up twice during the night and laughed till the bed shook. April 13. An extraordinary coincidence. Carrie had called in a woman to make some chintz covers for drawing room chairs and sofa to prevent the sun fading the green wrap of the furniture. I saw the woman and recognized her as a woman who used to work years ago for my old aunt at Clapham. It only shows how small the world is. April 14. Spent the whole of the afternoon in the garden, having this morning picked up at a bookstore for 5 pence a capital little book in good condition on gardening. I procured and sold some half-hardy annuals in what I'd fancy would be a warm, sunny border. I thought of a joke and called out Kerry. Kerry came out rather thirsty, I thought. I said, "I have just discovered we have got a lodging house." She replied, "How do you mean?" I said, "Look at the borders." Kerry said, "Is that all you wanted me for?" I said, "Any time you would have laughed at my little pleasantly." Kerry said, "Certainly, at any other time, but not when I am busy in the house." The stairs looked very nice. Gawain called and said the stairs looked all right, but it made the banisters look all wrong, and suggested a coat of paint on them also, which Carrie quite agreed with. I walked round the pulley, and fortunately he was out, so I had a good excuse to let the banisters slide. By the by, that is rather funny. April 15, Sunday. At 3 o'clock, Cummins and Cowan called for a good long walk over Hampstead and Finchley, and brought with them a friend named Stewbrook. We walked and chatted together, except Stewbrook, who was always a few yards behind us, staring at the ground and cutting at the grass with a stick. As it was getting on for 5, we four held a consultation and Gowan suggested that we should make for the cow and hedge and get some tea. Steelbrook said a brandy and soda was good enough for him. I reminded him that all public houses were closed till 6 o'clock. Steelbrook said, "That's all right, bona fide travelers." We arrived, and as I was trying to pass, the man in charge of the gate said, "Where from?" I replied, "Holloway." He immediately put up his arm and declined to let me pass. I turned back for a moment when I saw Steelbrook closely followed by Cummins and Gowan make for the entrance. I watched them and thought I would have a good laugh at their expense. I heard the porter say, "Where from?" when, to my surprise, in fact disgust, Steelbrook replied, "Blackheath," and the three were immediately admitted. Gowan called to me across the gate and said, "We shan't be a minute." I waited for them the best part of an hour. When they appeared, they were all in most excellent spirits, and the only one who made an effort to apologize was Mr. Steelbrook, who said to me, "It was very rough on you to be kept waiting, but we had another spin for S and B's." I walked home in silence. I couldn't speak to them. I felt very dull all the evening, but deemed it advisable not to say anything to Kerry about the matter. April 16. After business, set to work in the garden. When it got dark, I wrote to Cummins and Cowan, who neither called for a wonder. Perhaps they were ashamed of themselves about yesterday's adventure at the cow and hedge. Afterwards, made up my mind not to write yet. April 17. Thought I would write a kind little note to Gowan and Cummins about last Sunday and warning them against Mr. Steelbrook. Afterwards, thinking the matter over, tore up the letters and determined not to write at all, but to speak quietly to them. Dumbfounded at receiving a sharp letter from Cummins, saying that both he and Cowan had been waiting for an explanation of mind you, my extraordinary conduct coming home on Sunday. At last I wrote, "I thought I was the aggrieved party, but as I freely forgive you, you, feeling yourself aggrieved, should bestow forgiveness on me." I have copied this verbatim in the diary, which I think it is one of the most perfect and thoughtful sentences I've ever written. I posted the letter, but in my own heart I felt I was actually apologizing for having been insulted. April 18. I'm in for a cold. Spent the whole day at the office, sneezing. In the evening, the cold being intolerable, sent Sarah out for a bottle of Kinahan, fell asleep in the armchair, and woke with the shivers. Was startled by a loud knock at the front door. Carrie, awfully flurried, Sarah still out, so went up, opened the door, and found it was only Cummins. Remember, the grocer's boy had again broken the side bell. Cummins squeezed my hand and said, I've just seen Gowan." "All right," Say no more about it. There is no doubt they are both under the impression I have apologized. While playing dominoes with Cummins in the parlor, he said, "By the by, do you want any wine or spirits? My cousin Melton has just set up in the trade and has a splendid whiskey, 4 years in bottle, at 38 shillings. It is worth your while laying down a few dozen of it." I told him my cellars, which were very small, were full up. To my horror, at that very moment, Sarah entered the room and putting a bottle of whiskey wrapped in a dirty piece of paper on the table in front of us said, "Please, sir, the grocer says he ain't got no more Kinahan, but you find this very good at 2 and 6, with 2 pence returned on the bottle. And please, did you want any more sherry, as he has some at 1 and 3, as dry as or not?" And that is the point I will be stopping for tonight. I hope you fall asleep to this and enjoy a beautiful night rest. And please, you can support this channel by liking the video, leaving a comment, and subscribing so that I can keep making more and more videos for other book lovers like yourself and myself. Until next time, I'll see you. Good night.